You've probably attended a funeral. Maybe you sat in a stiff chair, listened to someone speak in a hushed voice, and watched a casket disappear behind curtains or into the ground. It felt formal, distant, choreographed almost, like a performance everyone silently agreed to follow. But strip away the suits, the flowers, the recorded organ music, go back past written history, past pyramids, past the first cities. What's left is something far older and far stranger than any funeral you've ever sat through. So what did death actually look like for the earliest humans? Not a ceremony read off a script. Something closer to raw instinct, colliding for the first time with an idea no other animal on Earth seems to fully grasp. That someone you loved is now permanently, irreversibly gone. For a long time, scientists assumed early humans treated their dead the way most animals do. Abandon the body, move on. Survival doesn't leave room for sentiment. But then researchers started digging, literally, and what they found didn't fit that assumption at all. In 1957 and the years that followed, archaeologist Ralph Solecki excavated a cave in northern Iraq called Shanidar and uncovered something that shook the field of anthropology. Several Neanderthal skeletons, tens of thousands of years old, arranged in the cave in ways that looked deliberate. Some appeared to have been placed with care rather than simply dumped or left where they fell. Soil samples near one skeleton contained unusually high concentrations of pollen, leading Solecki to propose these Neanderthals may have laid flowers over their dead. This idea, later nicknamed the flower burial, sparked decades of debate. Some scientists pushed back hard, suggesting burrowing animals could have carried the pollen in after the fact. But the core discovery stood regardless of the flowers, bodies that were positioned, not discarded. Why would this matter so much? Because positioning a body takes effort. It takes time. It takes a group of tired, hungry, physically exhausted early humans choosing to pause survival tasks, dig or clear a resting place, and arrange a corpse with intention. No other species on Earth reliably does this. Elephants sometimes linger near their dead. Chimpanzees occasionally seem distressed by a death in the group. But arranging a body deliberately, treating it as something more than dead matter, appears to be something distinctly, stubbornly human, or at least distinctly hominin. More recent research pushed the timeline back even further. Archaeologist Paul Pettitt, who has spent much of his career studying the archaeology of death, examined burial evidence across multiple Neanderthal sites in Europe and the Middle East, and found repeated patterns. Bodies curled into fetal positions. Bodies placed in shallow pits dug specifically for that purpose. In some cases, tools or animal bones found positioned alongside the remains, suggesting objects were deliberately included, not randomly scattered by chance. Pettitt's research suggested these weren't isolated incidents. They were early evidence of something resembling ritual, a repeated behavior carrying meaning beyond simple disposal. Here's where it gets stranger. Around 100,000 years ago, at a site called Kafzeh Cave in what is now Israel, archaeologists uncovered an early Homo sapiens burial, containing a child, its body arranged carefully, with a large set of deer antlers placed directly on its chest. Antlers do not end up on a child's chest by accident. Someone chose to put them there. Someone made a decision, in that moment, that this object belonged with this body, for reasons we can only guess at now, but reasons that clearly mattered enough to act on. Think about what this means for the internal world of these early humans. They almost certainly didn't have anything resembling modern religion, modern philosophy, or a clear concept of an afterlife the way later civilizations would develop. What they had instead may have been something rawer, and in a strange way, more emotionally honest. An overwhelming compulsion to do something in the face of loss. Not because a belief system told them to, because the alternative, doing nothing, apparently felt unbearable. Consider grief itself for a moment, stripped down to its rawest biological core. Anthropologists studying grief across cultures have noted something remarkably consistent. Regardless of geography, religion, or era, grief tends to follow recognizable patterns. Intense yearning for the person who is gone, a kind of searching behavior, glancing toward where they used to sit, half expecting them to walk through a door. Difficulty accepting the permanence of the loss, even when the mind fully understands it intellectually. These patterns show up across wildly different cultures that had no contact with each other, which strongly suggests grief isn't something humans invented through culture. It's something deeper, hardwired, likely present in some form in these same early humans burying their dead in caves tens of thousands of years ago. Now here's the twist worth sitting with. If grief is this ancient, if it predates religion, predates writing, predates virtually every belief system humans have ever constructed, then burial itself may not have started as a spiritual practice at all. It may have started as something closer to an early technology for managing an unbearable emotional problem, a way of externalizing grief into an action, something to do with your hands, your body, your effort, when your mind has no framework yet for processing why someone who was speaking and laughing and breathing is now suddenly, permanently still. This reframes the entire picture. Placing flowers, antlers, tools, or ochre pigment beside a body wasn't necessarily an early form of praying to a god. It may have been an early form of coping, full stop, a physical outlet for something the brain had no other way to express. Later, over tens of thousands of years, cultures layered meaning onto this instinct. Afterlives were imagined. Gods were assigned roles. Rituals became formalized, codified, eventually written into religious texts. But underneath all of that architecture may sit something far simpler and far older. A species that could not simply walk away from its dead and needed to do something about that. This also explains something modern people rarely think about directly. Why do you still feel a pull toward ritual after a death today, even if you're not religious? Why does bringing flowers to a grave, or lighting a candle, or simply visiting a specific place tied to someone you lost, feel meaningful even without any belief that the dead person can perceive it? According to this research, you may be running the exact same ancient program that drove a small group of Neanderthals to place a body carefully in a shallow pit in a cave in Iraq, 60,000 years before anyone wrote down a single word about gods or an afterlife. There's something almost startling in that continuity. The specific rituals have changed enormously across history and culture. The instinct underneath them appears to have barely changed at all. You are not more evolved past this need. You are, in this particular respect, remarkably similar to a Neanderthal standing over a body in a cave, unable to simply turn and walk away, needing to do something with hands that had nothing useful left to do. So consider that funeral you sat through, the stiff chair, the hushed voice, the recorded organ music. Strip all of that formal architecture away. And what's underneath is something far older than any religion, far older than any writing system, far older than the concept of an afterlife itself. It's simply this: a human being, faced with the unbearable stillness of someone they loved, choosing to do something about it, because doing nothing was never really an option at all.